What do you think of when you hear this? I mean, I just played it in all of its 22 mentions of practice glory. That's it from beginning to end. There's no edits in there. I'm wondering your thoughts when you hear it back from beginning to end.
Well, one, I feel bad because I wasn't aware, of his loss. I know how loyal Alan is and how loyal he was to all his friends, growing up, in Hampton, Virginia. His mom was young when he had him. And Alan's friends were so close to him. Matter of fact, when he went and signed with Philly, a lot of the guys came and lived with Alan. But I heard two different sides about how the thing actually happened. I heard Billy King's account and Pat Croce's account. The way I remember, we ended up losing to Boston, which, obviously was difficult. But usually after the season ends, you always have, they call them an exit meeting where you meet with the players and individually and you talk about things as a coach I needed to do better and things as a player that they were planning on doing this summer to help them improve. And usually it's pretty open and honest, which I love that part of it. If I remember, Alan missed the meeting. And, you had mentioned it came after us losing a tough series after we had a great year the year before. But Alan missed the meeting that he was supposed to have with me, and we met. I told him we should meet at 3 o'clock, and we met at 3 o'clock, and all he wanted to talk to me about was, Coach, are you going to trade me? And that was really first and foremost on his mind. And I said, basically, Alan, as great as you are, and you're our best player and probably as good a player as we have in our sport, that I said, in order for us to take the next step and continue to get better, you got to set an example. And we talked about things I thought he needed to do better and things that, he felt would help him in terms of him develop and that I needed to do better. And, I'm a stickler for, everybody doing the right thing all the time. And especially if you can coach your best player and he buys into what you're doing, you become a hell of a coach.
Sure.
And nobody admired Alan any more than I did or his teammates. When you hear the conversation about every time he stepped out on the court, you never saw anybody compete any harder or have more of a will to win than he did. I used to talk to him all the time. As great as Michael, was and all the great players we had in our league, I thought Alan had an impact on more people because more people could identify with him because of his size and his courage and the way he played the game. And we used to talk all the time, I thought, about how he could help kids, by setting a good example. And the same thing about how I thought he could help our team. So basically, we had this long conversation, and the only thing that mattered to him during the time we were talking about is I heard rumors about, me possibly being traded, Coach, and I don't want any part of that. I want to be here. I love Philly. I love my teammates. So he has 3 hours between our conversation and then the press conference. And I don't know what the hell went on during those 3 hours. I can only imagine. And then the only thing on his mind was basically, I'm hoping somebody asks me if I'm going to be around Philadelphia and I'm not going to get traded. And I'm sure it came up during our conversation. I said, Alan, you got to be a little bit more, conscious about doing all the right things. When we went to training camp, we might be there for 25 days. Nobody worked any harder. And nobody could ever fault Allen for his effort on the court, and how hard he competed and how much he loved his teammates. And he really respected me in a lot of ways. I could talk to Allen one-on-one, and we could talk about anything. If I got on him maybe in front of his teammates, that was kind of difficult because he had so much pride. But he goes to this press conference, and I know he said 22 times he mentioned the word press conference, practice, but he was taken back by that conversation, that question, because, after our season ended, that was one of the issues I had with the press. I said Allen needed to do certain things better. But when they asked him that question, all he wanted the question to be was, am I going to be back here? And I guess with the situation with his friends passing away, and then all of a sudden us losing to Boston, and then all of a sudden, they're asking him about practice when all he wants to talk about is, hey, I'm not going to be traded. That, I think, set him off.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.